Well guys, good morning. It is a beautiful morning out here. I got a fresh coffee on the go. We're going to make a go of it here in the shop today. Hopefully not for too long, because that means the repair that I'm probably going to try to do today isn't going to take that long. That's my hope. Right here behind you is my Polaris Sportsman 2005 700. This thing has been very good to me. It's worked well in all the conditions I put it through. However, as you guys would have seen in some of my more recent videos, this thing's got some problems. I don't know exactly what the problem is, but I will show you what it's doing. Pretty much when I'm driving, it'll go forward, no problem, low gear, high gear, four-wheel drive, nothing wrong with it. As soon as I put it into reverse, it doesn't move. My fear is that this could be a transmission issue, and if it is, well, we got some big issues, because then I'm going to have to make a decision whether it's worth diving into or whether it's worth just selling it for parts. The other thing I might think it could be is the differential, the rear differential on this. We have a little look-see down here, quite the cobweb there, but if we have a little look-see down here, the differential is right there smack dab in the middle. That could also be the issue. Now, if I give you a bit of backstory on this, I bought this from a good friend of mine, probably a good 3 years ago, maybe a bit more. He took care of it. It was in good shape when I got it. I have recently done a complete fluid change on this. I tend to do that in the winter time. All the fluids have been changed, everything from the transmission, engine oil, the differentials, etc., etc. I don't have a concern that the fluids are low unless it's been leaking. We're going to have a look at that if need be. But I think what we'll do first and foremost, I'll just give you guys a once around here. You can see here it's got some big beefy tires on here. I didn't put these on here. They came like that, and truth be told, I probably could get away with some turf tires for what I use it for. This thing doesn't go in mud. I don't sink it in the water or anything like that. I drive it around trails. I tow a trailer. I tow logs with it. So there it is, big beefy tires. You'll see this receiver hitch on the back. I actually made this. I couldn't find that good of an aftermarket product with a 2-inch receiver. So I actually bought the receiver, this tube of steel, and I welded on these two pieces. And then I sort of figured out where I could bolt it to. That's what we're left with. You guys are going to notice here, I've got this big box thing on the front. If you've been around the channel, you've seen this lots, and who knows what kind of creepy crawlers are floating around in here. But what you see in there is basically the spot I keep my chainsaw, I keep some oil, some clothing, whatever else when I go out to cut some logs. On the front here, the only thing I've done sort of aftermarket is I put a different winch on this thing. This is a super winch, 3,000 pound pull. I had the Warn winch that came with it. That gave out shortly after I got it, but it worked well up until that point. Other than that, you guys could see some big beefy tires up here as well. These things are fine and they give you great traction, but they are slightly oversized, and I think either on the front or the back there's actually wheel spacers. Not really my forte, that sort of aftermarket wheel thing, but hey, it's going to do the job for me. No complaints. And another thing you guys are going to notice, we got a little bit of play here in the shifter. The shifter connects to this linkage, comes down here into this part. Now, inside this casing here, I've had to dive into that before. What I had happen was, one day I was driving and all of a sudden the shifter, you could move it wherever you wanted, but it didn't do anything. So if you were already in high gear and you put it into reverse, well, it stayed in high gear. I had to dive into that housing there. There's a shaft and some gears on it. Well, the gears had stripped off the shaft. Had to do a bit of fancy replacement parts and the whole works in there, but now it works. Anyways, still a bit loose, probably the result of this linkage needing adjustment. Works for now. I'm one of those guys, if it works, don't fix it, so I'm gonna leave that exactly how it is. On this side, you guys can see everything looks fine. The plastics are worn, you know, the floorboard's been worn down. But hey, it's actually not too bad, right? I had to replace a bolt here or there. I think the headlights are intact. That one's a little loose. That one's a little better. But overall, it's in good shape and definitely does what I needed to. So I think what we're going to do, without further ado, I'm going to jack this thing up and we're going to show you exactly what the problem is. So you guys can sort of see what we're dealing with, what we're starting with. And keep in mind, I have not tried to problem solve this yet. So I don't know what we're getting into. This could be a good day, meaning it's a small problem, or it could be a very bad day, and, well, I'm going to start advertising parts off this thing. Here we go. And oh yeah, if you've never been in the shop before, welcome, and kind of excuse the mess. I got a lot of stuff going on, as you can imagine, like many of you do, and, well, cleaning the shop just hasn't hit the top of that list yet. let's have a look at this. Now we'll fire it up. You guys can hear what it sounds like. This is a cold start, and I brought this into the shop probably 3 nights ago, so cobwebs are already starting. Sounds pretty good for a stock exhaust, if you ask me. Okay, I'm gonna crank this thing up. Well, actually, before I crank it up, you guys can see what we're dealing with. I'm gonna put it in reverse here. And because my speedo's broken, I can't actually tell what gear I'm in by looking at the cluster, so I just sort of have to go based on where the gear hooks according to the shifter. You guys see that? That's reverse. So it's obviously binding. Forward, no problem. All right. Put her to park for now. That's what we're dealing with. As you can see, going in reverse is an issue, and if you can't go in reverse, well, the truth of the matter is I can't even get it out of the shop. So what we're going to do first and foremost, before we assume the most, I'm just going to check the CV axles, make sure they're still in play. I can see that they're in play, but you never know until you feel them. So let's get on down here and just see what we're dealing with. So there's one of them, and it's still attached. A little bit loose up at the differential there. Or drive axles, I guess we could call them. That one's still attached there as well. My brakes, I don't have a brake on that side. The rear brake comes to this side. I think the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna take off the tire here, and we'll see if that will shed some light on anything. All right, also I don't think it's leaking any fluid. I brought it in about 3 days early just because I thought if it was gonna leak fluid, I would be able to catch it. But nothing's on the floor, so I'm feeling like we're in good shape there. Probably could have given this thing a bath first. Get back here. Okay. Okay. Everything feels tight here, first and foremost. Hub's tight. Whoa, whoa, guess what? The day got a lot better, folks. Come on over here. That is amazing news. Come on over here. You guys see this? So, as I said, the rear brake is only on the one side of the rear. Well, look at this. For those of you who know anything about brakes, and especially disc brakes, you know that's definitely not something that's supposed to happen. I can tell you right off the bat, we are missing a nut and a bolt right here. That should be mounted right like that. And I suspect, and let's just hope this turns out to be true, but I suspect because this is loose, what's happening is I can drive forward. You can imagine the wheel turning, because this then just sort of pushes forward and gets out of the way. But when I go in reverse, the wheel's going this way. It probably gets hung up and sort of jams up on that and then locks the wheels up. I hope that's the issue. That would make my day here. Anyways, let's, gee, that's amazing. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Oh, it's threaded. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take out the other bolt down here on the bottom, see if I can get a match. And then we'll go ahead and put it in there. I'm just having a look at this, and you guys can see right there, see where the rubbing's been taking place? That's probably the inside of the rim. Let's flip this rim back up here. Get up here. Look at that. You guys see down in here? Sometimes it's good to keep your machines dirty. You guys see right there? That's where it's probably rubbing. That's where it's probably rubbing on that caliper. All right, well, let's take that off and we'll see what happens. Come on out of there. There we go. Okay, that was loose too, which is good for me to know. I will put some Loctite in there. Let's get this out and have a little look-see. Okay, I'm gonna get a light. Bear with me. Okay. You guys see over here? One thing I can tell you here is these brakes were not working very well at all. In fact, I questioned whether they actually worked. You guys can see there's a bit of uneven wear here. Actually, you know what? It's not too bad. They're not completely shot. I don't see any damage to the lines here. I think what we're going to end up doing is just putting them back on to verify that this is the problem first and foremost, but I can just about guarantee it is the problem. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's make sure these lines are out of the way. I'm going to move you guys back. Let's turn the machine on, put it in reverse again, and let's assume that this is the problem, and that means that should work. Let's try it. Get that out of the way. Here's forward. Sorry, here's forward. So that's low gear. High gear. That's neutral. Come on over here and have a look-see. Alright, so there's neutral. Nothing's happening. Reverse, and would you look at that? That's a beautiful thing. Well, I wouldn't say everything's nice and tight there. You guys can see quite a bit of play there in our shafts, but hey, I think it's going to work for now. That turned out to be a pretty small problem in the grand scheme of things. I was thinking transmission, and if you bet me money a few weeks back, I would have said, yeah, it's transmission. Just sort of that feeling of things not working, things binding up. I thought gears, I thought no oil, I thought the worst. What we found was a very simple problem, and what it comes down to, it's probably not having Loctite on the fasteners. So that is something I'm going to do when I reinstall these. Obviously, I'm short one bolt. I'm going to go see if I can locate one. You guys give me a bit of time. I will be back. We'll get that fixed. And then hopefully things are on the up and up. Good day. Here we go. I have a bolt here, but it was too long, so I'm just going to make do, and I'll just touch up the threads on that. And please excuse the camping gear. I was out camping recently, so let's see what we got for fixing those threads up. Okay, stay. Not quite done cleaning up yet, as you guys can tell. Where is my original? All right, guys, well, just before we put the caliper back on the rotor, I'm going to have a look at some of the other components in here, just because I don't get in here all that often. You guys notice that there's quite a bit of mud in here. That's probably just from my trails and the fact that I don't tend to wash it all that often. That's my fault. If we look here, we got we got the reservoir here for our brake fluid, and that looks pretty good. There's fluid in there. Here's our transmission down here. I was in here dealing with the oil over the winter. We have our main output shaft coming off that transmission and the engine heading back to our rear differential here. Let's just see what kind of play we got here. And well, we got a little bit right here. You guys can see that up and down. I don't know if that's normal or not. You guys tell me in the comments. Over here, that's a bit concerning. You guys see where all that oil is and all the dust that's stuck to it. There's probably some sort of a seal that's letting go there, but I guess for now it's still attached. One thing I am noticing here, you guys see where my finger is? That pin there. Now, I don't feel that pin coming out the other side. And so I'm wondering, did that pin push out this way? Let's just give her a little tap with a hammer. Maybe I'll ask you guys to let me know in the comments before I do that. Back here, you guys can see the sway bar. Those look fine. Up here, I have noticed in the past, the CV axle. Watch the movement right here. So I'm going to move this. Watch for that movement. There we go. Fair bit. I don't know. That's probably normal, I'm hoping. Down here, I don't see much movement at all. Don't see any cracks in the CV boots, which is good. Everything's tight. Perfect. Okay, hubs are tight. I don't feel any side-to-side motion, so we'll call that good. As for that exhaust, well, it's definitely like all other exhaust and things I own, rusted to the hills. But for the most part, I think what we need here is a good bath, so we might have to do that in the near future. Anyways, let's get this hardware back on. Now, the next question, what did I just do with that hardware? Here we go. So, as I was looking around here, there was a flat washer and a lock washer on the bolt that was holding the caliper to the rotor. Obviously, that came loose. What I'm going to do is put it back exactly the way it was. Let's put it the right way, though. Okay, so I'm putting it back exactly the way it was, like so. I'm going to also put Loctite on there, blue Loctite, and that way, let's hope we don't encounter this issue in the future. That would have been a disaster if I was a long ways from home, especially if I was halfway stuck in some sort of mud bog or a trail or had a load on and I couldn't go in reverse. So let's see about getting this back on here. Just separating the brake pads from the, like, there we go. So I can get it back on. Good. There we go. Okay, stay. This is what I use here. I just get that from the Canadian Tire. Works really, really well. I've got one here that's old and I'm just trying to use up. That's why you see me sort of pasting it on there. Okay, let's thread that in there. Easier said than done. Get in there. Can't see, that's the problem. Okay, good. Just before we get ahead of ourselves, I'm just going to look in the manual at that pin way down there where I'm pointing. I just want to find out if in fact that thing needs to be in all the way or not. You guys can see here, here's the manual. And one thing with Polaris, they do have good manuals. I had to print this one off the internet. I don't have the original. Where am I going here? Let's go to the index. Is there an index? Yes. What do we call that? What do we call that? Drive shaft, I'm assuming? Drive clutch, drive shaft boot inspection, drive shaft boot replacement, driven clutch assembly. I think what I'm calling the CV axle, they're calling a drive axle. It's not what we want. Okay, here we go. Maybe it's in the transmission. What do I call that? You guys are probably screaming at me through the screen. Oh, what do we call this? Right there, front prop shaft. Okay, that's a prop shaft, good to know. Got to grease it through that hole. I wonder, does that mean Polaris U-joint grease, locate grease fitting and grease with grease gun? Does that mean I'm missing a zerk or a grease fitting? I wonder. Let's just see if we can get a bit better picture of it. The roll pin, roller pin, you guys can see it there. It goes all the way through. That right there is my issue, and that was my concern. That pin is not going all the way through, and so I think that tells me I can give her a little bumperoo with a hammer. I don't see any other pictures in here, and so we're going to go ahead and do that. Let's go down here and see. Jump right back in there. You guys see what we're dealing with? That's what I'm going to hit. I put it in neutral here. And so let's rotate the shaft around. There we go. So you guys can see there. You guys see there's the hole on the other side. I'm going to try to push that roll pin back through there. I have a feeling it probably vibrated loose. And so let's try to put this in a position where I can put a little hit on it. There we go. We'll try that. You guys watching for me? I think we're getting some movement. Is that our little piece sticking out? What's that? Get in there. Well, it turns out I just need a bigger hammer. It is going in now, so I'm going to finish driving that home, and then we'll put the wheel on. Ooh, my finger was a bit scared on that one. And that one. Okay, hop in there. Let's see what we're dealing with. I think we finally got it. You guys can see the pin there all the way through on the one side. And we're just about flush on the other side. So we're going to call that good. Right on. I don't know what the tech specs are on this, but let's just pretend that I got them preset in my forearms. How about that? Okay, good enough for now. Moment of truth. Can we drive the sucker out of here? Alright guys, that's a beautiful thing right there. We got the Sportsman fixed up, and at the beginning of this day I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought maybe this might be the last go around with the 2005 Polaris here, but lucky for me it was nothing more than the rotor and the caliper getting bound up and preventing the rear wheels from spinning. I guess the moral of this story is I got to check for loose nuts and bolts when I'm doing my yearly inspection. Obviously I missed that one and it could have cost me dearly. Now if we look back here, having that loose bolt, it actually could have, when the caliper got jammed up in the rotor in the rim, it could have actually pulled on these hoses and torn them right out. That would have been a bigger issue. So lucky for me, that's a pretty easy fix. Anyways, I think what we're going to do, last thing, is we're going to give this thing a little bit of a bath. To be honest with you, the only time this thing gets a bath is when I leave it outside by mistake and it gets rained on. So I think we'll put this thing under the tap, get it wet, and hopefully it'll shine it up a little nicer, and maybe it'll treat me a little bit better and keep all those nuts and bolts nice and tight for me. Anyways, here we go. All right, guys, well, here is my power washer. I know some of you have asked about it before. This thing, what is it? A Simpson, but it's got a Honda engine, and that's probably the reason I ended up getting it. I've had this for a number of years. Usually starts really easily. We'll find out if that's the case. Obviously, we had a bit of a freak storm come in, so I took a little break. The rain, I think, is done for now, so we're going to fire this thing up. Anyways, let's see if I remember how to use this, because it hasn't been that long. You guys can probably tell by the cobwebs on it. In fact, I haven't even used it this year. I think it's pretty straightforward, if I'm not mistaken. I think. Isn't it? First pull, honestly, that was the first pull for the year. All right, here goes. We're trying one of these foam cannons. I've never used one before. I just put a little bit of soap in it that I use for, well, washing cars and whatnot. You guys can see we have a bit of a adjustment here on the top. I have a feeling that's a knob for the amount of soap it picks up. I'm just going to plug it in, fire up, hope it works. I'm going to coat this whole thing, and we'll see what it looks like. And if it goes well, then I'll do the tractor and the golf cart maybe another time. Maybe this time, depending how fast this is. Okay, I think that's all there is to it. Let's fire her up. Tell you, that thing is something. I had no idea what it was going to work like. That's on the lowest setting for soap application, and I'd say that works pretty good. And you have a look here. We didn't use all that much soap. I probably only had it up maybe twice as much as what you guys can see in there, so not too bad overall. I think what we're going to do, we're going to let that sit. I'm going to go ahead and give this a go with the tractor and maybe even the golf cart while we're here. I'm going to do once over quick with just water, then we'll soap it. We'll see what it looks like. Well, I can tell you that sure beats scrubbing. I think that's going to get put into action a little more often. You guys can see it certainly cleaned things up nice. That ATV, I don't think that ever looked better. If I was smart, which some days I'm smarter than others, I would have done this before I attempted to do the repair. Then I wouldn't have the dust and the dirt and everything, but such is life. So that's nice and clean. The tractor as well got cleaned up nice. I'll definitely put that into action more, I think. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. As you can tell, some fixes are not always as big as they first appear. That, lucky for me, was not a big fix. We got it done. That's back into action. Guys, make sure you check out some of my other videos if you're brand new here. And for those of you who keep coming back every single week, thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, you all take care, and I'll see you next time.